Tawatinaw River runs from its headwaters in Halliwell Lake through the Tawatinaw River Valley until it reaches the Athabasca River. After the last ice age, the Tawatinaw Valley was the original route for the Athabasca River. At this time, the Athabasca flowed into the North Saskatchewan River due to a large ice dam. The ice dam gave way, and the Athabasca River took up its current course. The Tawatinaw River is relatively short. The length of the river can be driven in a little over 45 minutes. The valley is home to an abundance of wildlife, as it provides a great variety of habitat. In the marshlands along the valley floor, water birds and songbirds make their homes and raise their young among the reeds. Steep banks give way to sandy jack pine forests and large wetland complexes where deer, elk, woodland caribou, and moose, as well as black bear and wolves, make their homes. People from the Plains woodland culture frequented the Athabasca area for at least 5,000 years. The Tawatinaw River Valley and its tributaries were once an important trail system for the native people. It also served as a food collecting area, as it was and still is rich in berries such as saskatoons and blueberries, and game that once included buffalo. Evidence of the area's first people are easy enough to find if you know where to look. Ever since farmers started cultivating, they have found arrowheads, scrapers, as well as hammerheads. The Tawatinaw River Valley also has a number of native burial sites. In 1874, the Indian Trail, which followed the Tawatinaw Valley north to the Athabasca River, was developed into the Athabasca Landing Trail. It was up this trail to the Athabasca Landing that all the Hudson Bay supplies went, out to Hudson Hope and the mouth of the Mackenzie River. It was also used as a route for settlers and for soldiers to move north during World War II.
For the first 14 years of my life, overlooking the Tawatinaw Valley, Tawatinaw River Valley. The river valley was a playground for my two brothers and oldest sister, and for neighbors that we had who came here. And I've got lots of fond memories of what it meant to me and still means to me, because otherwise I wouldn't have the memories if it wasn't here.
You grew hay down along the river?
Yeah.
And that the creek was not as marshy then?
No, it was an ordinary bed, riverbed, just like the big rivers. But now it's more marsh and not much river anymore. But we used to play in there and fish, and where the bridge went across, on the one side, on the south side it was only ankle deep, but on the other side it was past your waist.
The history of settlement in this area is rich with conflict and hardship, but also with the hope and freedom that comes from independence. There are remnants of the area's early settlers. It is not uncommon to find old cedars, plows, as well as buckboards and other tools of the early settlers. The rich farmland in the area helped to attract settlers. The first large wave of settlers to come to the area in the early 1900s were from the war-ravaged Europe. Many of these people saw the area as a beacon of hope offered in a free land, where people lived or died based on their own toil, not by control of foreign governments and oppressive regimes. The history of the early pioneers to the area is one of privation. Many had escaped from the landless peasantry under the class system of Europe to face the harsh realities of the Canadian frontier. Once they arrived, there were many hardships to be faced, but all of these paled in comparison to the long Alberta winter. Those from Eastern Europe fared better than those from more moderate climates. The only way the pioneers could make it through the hard winters was to lend each other a helping hand. The early pioneers relied on the native people for local knowledge of the land to survive. Labor had to be done by hand power or with teams of horses. It was horses that helped to open the area for farming, not tractors. Natural gas and conventional oil exploration and development currently exist near the Tawatinaw River. There is also natural gas and oil exploration and development on Little Pine Creek. Sand and gravel development currently exists adjacent to the Tawatinaw River. The Tawatinaw River, Little Pine Creek Watershed is located within Alberta's White Zone. These lands are not held by Forest Management Agreement, FMA. Forestry on private land is occurring within the Tawatinaw River, Little Pine Creek Watershed. Clear cutting along the Tawatinaw River and its tributaries has caused erosion. Tree roots hold soil in place. Once the tree has been removed, erosion occurs. Agriculture is part of the area's economy. Land in the watershed area is used for producing food. However, proper farming techniques and riparian and wetland setbacks can minimize impacts.
Today along both the Little Pine, the Collington and the Tawatinaw, we've been finding some pretty high readings for phosphate. Some up over as high as 1 part per million.
On May 25th, 2011, on the Tawatinaw River and Little Pine Creek site, assessments of 23 locations were conducted to sample the following parameters at milligrams per liter: dissolved oxygen, total dissolved solids, nitrate, phosphate, the temperatures, degrees Celsius, and acidity, pH. According to the data gathered, there were 4 sites with low levels of oxygen, from 2.9 milligrams per liter to 6.4 milligrams per liter. These levels limit freshwater life. These locations were shallower with less flow than other locations. Deeper, more heavily flowing sections of the Tawatinaw River had high dissolved oxygen levels of up to 15.9 milligrams per liter at the mouth of the Tawatinaw, where it converges with the Athabasca River. The health of a river is affected by the land that surrounds it. A variety of native vegetation keeps silt and other contaminants to a minimum. Roots filter and slow surface runoff that enters a river. If the health of a riparian ecosystem is to be maintained, then keystone species such as beaver that provide habitat for many other species and retain water in the system must have a healthy population. Wolves keep the deer, moose, and elk populations in check. If there were too many deer, moose, and elk, streambeds would be damaged. Shrubs such as willow that hold the riverbanks from eroding would be degraded, allowing floods to carry large chunks of land downstream, causing silt to build up and destroy fish populations.
Closed canopy riparian areas like this with lots of alder provide good winter habitat for birds. The alder has a lot of little seeds on it that they love to eat in the winter. This tributary to the Little Pine is a first order stream. But generally, throughout its history, it's had water running in it year round, but it seems to have dried off this fall. It's been hot and dry all through August. It's just got a few puddles remaining. These small first order tributaries along the Little Pine are generally spring fed, and I thought they would be flowing later in the season this year because we had good winter snow soaked in really good last winter. Often people think that once a tree's lived out its life, it no longer serves a purpose in the forest, but as you can see with this old fallen spruce here, it's providing unique habitat for a lot of different purposes. Different things that require damp coolness when it's hot out, they'll find good habitat underneath on the sheltered side of these fallen logs. So they provide a very important part of the ecosystem, as well as as you can see, they start to break down over the years. First from bigger actions, and then eventually from the fungi and the mosses and stuff, and then finally from your microorganisms, and they provide rich nutrients again for the soil.
There are many areas in the Tawatinaw River and its tributaries that could be improved by better land management, such as eliminating the use of ATVs in the creek bed. Off-road vehicles disturb the stream bed and the water becomes filled with sand and dirt, causing fish and amphibians to be unable to reproduce. The straightening of the Tawatinaw River in the town of Athabasca will severely limit the ability of large wildlife to use the important wildlife corridor connecting the Tawatinaw Watershed to the Athabasca Watershed. Scientists believe that the straightening will drastically reduce the number of fish species that have historically used the Tawatinaw River as spawning and rearing habitat. This will change the species composition and use of the entire river. Cumulative pressure from farming, forestry, oil and gas, along with urban development are having a detrimental effect on the ecosystem of the Tawatinaw River watershed system. future of this river and its tributaries depend on the decisions we make in the next few years. If changes are made to the way we treat the area we call home by considering all impacts and taking steps to lessen them, then there will be a healthy river for future generations. There's much history in this area, combined with the wealth of natural beauty. Will this generation take the steps necessary to protect this proud little river for the future? That question can only be answered by choices made by you and me and our collective community.